I don't know, but I think it was on the wrong microphone, the settings. All right. Another thing while I'm just free forming, try to play with, I think I'm going to spin out a Amazon web service and play with those a bit, and I might report back to you a little on how that goes. You can get, if you want, you can get Azure for free for a year, and you can get it for a year. And basically, you're just spinning out virtual machines in the void somewhere, New Jersey or Moscow or wherever they have their servers. And for free, there are certain limits on what you can do. And you have to be a little bit careful. You don't want to get popular, because if you go beyond certain thresholds, they'll start charging you. And most of what they charge on is bandwidth coming in, people coming in. So if you do something really popular, you better hope to make it down before you have to pay very much. They start charging unless you can't cancel it. You need to make sure you do that. Just as a side. So let's bring up Visual Studio. The other thing I was thinking of doing, and I may just do it as a show and tell, is try to configure IIS on here so you can see a little bit of what would be involved. So that, because in real life, you're never going to run multiple versions, leave a version of Visual Studio running all the time so that people can, and it's not, I've done it a couple of times now, so I'm almost confident that I can show you how to do it. So we'll do that. You can also run, as I said, web services in Apache, though you're more likely to write them in Java if you do that, or PHP. You can do it in either. Same thing we're doing, just in a different language. Right? All right, so we did the book review login service, that I think was the last one, and then we did the client, right? Yeah. No confirmation. No, all right, so this time what we're going to do is we're going to add, basically what we want to do is add a review, an actual review. Now to do that, there's a couple of things that we also need to be able to add. So we probably need to be able to add a new book, because you may be reviewing a book that's not in the list, right? And we may need to add one or more authors, because again, the author may not be in the list of authors. It's fairly easy if they are, but it complicates things if they're not. So in order to add a review, we need to also be able to add an author and add a book. Okay. What this is full of new concepts. You know how in the diagram it shows those many-to-many relationships. We're going to be using those a bit more this time. Also, we're going to use something that's called lambda notation. And this is weird, but it's not Microsoft alone. It's things like this. You know, lines, you know, the arrows, and there's all sorts of different little symbols that go with it. Java does it too. And I think they've even added it to upper ends of PHP, lambda notation. And it's basically, the way they describe it is not real descriptive, but it's basically using functions, inline functions. I'm trying to think of a way to describe it. It actually makes great sense in C++ because what you're doing is using function pointers, but that's not what you see in the other languages.
Incidentally, they're adding it to the new version of ECMAScript as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's become a really big, it's really nice for comparing objects that have multi-valued things, and basically you're building inline functions to deal with that. It sounds really hard. What we're not going to do isn't. But just to tell you, there's a whole world of stuff there. There's another whole world of stuff that we're not going to play with, which would be actually relevant to some of this, which is threading. When you have you have a machine that has 8 cores or more, you can increase performance enormously by dividing up your request among those cores. Dividing it up isn't hard. Actually, what's really hard is bringing it back together in the right sequence. The tools for dividing it aren't difficult, but we're not doing that. I just want to give you a hint of all the kinds of stuff you could learn on your own. So we could do service, or we could add it to an existing one. Do we want to add it to the login service? Okay, so I'm going to open the login service. At home, I've been building one of these to go with Community Assist, and I just put everything into one service, which is a bit messy, but that way you only, and I put it all in IIS too, so. But you can, one of the things that we'll look at when we do this one is you can, on the client side, you can make more than one service reference. You can make as many references as you want. So you can tie into a dozen different services, and they don't have to come from the same place. If you were doing a site that's kind of a portal, you could tie into services from all over the place, a news service, a weather service, whatever kinds of services make sense. All right, so we have this service, which is just the login and the reviewer registration. One thing that I don't think I said, but I'm going to have to tell you at many different machines, is that when you have this stored procedure, you have to include all the parameters that it asks for, every single one in the right order. Now, when you have the form, you don't necessarily have to put a value in each of those parameters. If the parameter is nullable, you don't have to. But you do have to have the field for every single, and with the venue login, that's a lot of fields. Just, so they all have to be there and have to be in order. When you fill out the form, you don't necessarily have to put something in every text box, but you do have to have the form, all the fields. Does that make sense? And that's just because I did the stored procedure here. Okay, so we're going to add, let's go to the interface. Okay, so we're going to add a couple of operation contracts. You guys ready for this? So we need to add an author, we need to add a book, we need to add a review, right? So those actually can be fairly easy. And we can just return, whether it's good or not. So I'm going to do int add book. And we could create, I'm trying to think of what we want in here. What's in the book? It's interesting. I never have data connections when I bring these back up. Oops, that's not what I want to do. I'm just doing this so I can look at it without going to the... Yeah, I'm just doing this so I can look at it because I need to remember the fields. You can also look at it in your diagram. But I think I'm going to have to add some tables to that's show tracker. I don't want show tracker. What did I do? Did I do show tracker? doesn't do good to talk. I want the book review. Okay. And I want to look at what's in author, just the author name. So actually, I think we can get by here with just a string. Author name. And that needs to have an operation contract on top of it. And we want to add author. Oh, that's author name. That's book. Let's add, change that to add author. I was thinking I was okay, but I think I need coffee. All right, so I want to look over here. So let's look at book this time. So it has title, entry date, and ISBN. We could make a little data light, you know, basically a book light again. So we could do a data contract. This is all stuff we've kind of done before. And I'm just going to do public class. I'm going to call it, I'm calling everything book, I mean light, and I'm not sure that's always true. Sometimes they have more. So I am going to string title, and it needs to be public string title, and a get and set. It also needs, what else does it need? Anybody know? Needs to be a data member. If it's not a data member, it'll be perfectly happy, but you won't be able to see it on your client. So I'm going to do another data member, I guess. What else? Entry date. I don't know if we need to add that because we can add that in the when we actually do the edition. I'm going to add one for author. Okay, so that's our book light. You guys have that? What? So I just did title, ISBN, and author. These kind of data contracts, you have kind of a built-in data contract with the with the entities that we've added, but these are easier to handle sometimes than the actual data entities.
And this way you put at the top.
Oh, at the very end, in the interface.
Yes.
So all I've got so far is add author, string author name. And then this one would be int add book book light, and I'm just going to call it BL. So those would be the two new interfaces. We also have the review to add, which is going to be the weirder one. You want to go back down to the data contract? Okay. What? Right, so there's author, and add book. And then the next one will be add review, but we're going to need something like review light, right? Because it has a lot of fields. And then we'll be done with the interface, and we'll go and a couple other things we need to do. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you need down to the data thing too? Again, part of it is get some confidence that you don't need to see exactly what I do. That's the book light at the bottom. I mean, if you just think about it, what aspects of the book? So I'm just looking at the fields in the database. And there is a book entity which we could use. The reason I'm not is that I've occasionally had trouble seeing them in the client. Whereas these always show up. So I'm just doing this because I know this works. Sometimes the other works. Why it doesn't is still a little bit of a mystery to me when it doesn't work. But these will always work. These classes that I make my own data content. And these classes, I mean, when you think about it, they're all they are, and actually so are the ones that the entity, ADO entities makes for you. All that they are is, at this point, is just bundles to store data. You know, they don't, these classes have no methods. They're not doing anything. They're just storing the data. And the advantage is that you can pass around one thing instead of passing three things. Or in the case of some of the longer ones, pass one thing instead of passing a dozen things, right? So it's just makes your life easier. They're just bundles for data. That's one of the functions that a class can serve. You know, there's lots of other kinds of classes where you do real work and things. Our service class is a class essentially with several methods that does a lot of different things. You guys ready? Next part. Let's
Go to the service contact overhead.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
So we put our review with data contract. Like.
So I got book light, and then there's a reviewer light, right, that we did before.
Yeah, that's the review.
Yeah, so we need a new review. So yeah, so you're right. We basically need another.
So could we add it to the?
I wouldn't, because it's two different things.
Oh,
The review is a different thing than the book. And one of the things, and this is a basic principle of a lot of things, but object-oriented programming too, the class should be about one thing. All right, so it should be about a book, it should be about a reviewer, or in this case, the review. And I know it makes it a pain because you have to make so many of them. So I'm going to do a data contract. Public class review. And you know, if you can think of a better naming convention than light, because I think that's a really dumb naming convention. But it is really important when you do this that you not name the class review. Anybody know why? Just think about it.
It's the name of the table.
It is the name of a table, and because it's the name of a table, it's the name of a class in the what the ADO.
so you'd have more than one review.
Right, you'd have more than one review, and it doesn't throw an error, which I wish it would do. What it does is, like it does with all variables, it gives the more local one greater precedence. So when you go to write your review to the database, you don't have access to the database table, you only have access to this table, and it gets confused. Never name two things the same. It's just going to confuse things. Now I do sometimes if they're out of scope, if they're different scopes, but generally it's not good to name two things the same. Now, one of the problems is knowing what things are named, right? So, and I think one of the least realistic parts of this whole exercise for you is that because you didn't write the database, and you have only the vaguest idea of where I'm going with the services and the clients, it's hard. The hardest part, you don't have an overview of what that application might look like. But if you did, and if you had good contact with the database and stuff, you'd get a sense of what purpose all these have and what the names are underneath. And just never name two things the same. So the tables, if you have this up, when you look, there's a review table. That means that you can't do it. And you don't want to name a thing author, right? And you don't want to name a thing reviewer. You don't want to name a thing any of you don't want to name things that are already named. They're going to be in there. What else would I say about that? Oh, just as a trick though, it is case sensitive in C#. So if it's a capital here, you could do it with a lowercase if you want. But again, don't confuse yourself as well as don't confuse it. What?
I'm just asking for trouble.
Yeah. So actually I need this, and I'm going to pin it for a moment because I want to see what's in review. So review has the book key. It has the reviewer key. It has the date, the title of the review, the rating of the review, which is an int, and then the text of the review. So I'm going to put the title in here. So public, so we need to make it a data member. And I'm going to do string book title. Now, book title is a field there. So I say don't name things the same. In the context of review light, this will always be review light dot book title, and the other one will always be review dot or book dot book title. So in a sense, they are just separated. But again, don't confuse yourself. You can name these the same as the fields inside of a separate class if you want. It won't confuse it because this always belongs to this. Does that make sense? It'll never be presented except as belonging to this. Always as a dot after whatever instance of reviewer light. And that needs to be public. Again, it won't object if you don't make them public, but you won't see them. So I'm going to, what I do is I just copy these. The reviewer key, I don't think I need to put into this class. Maybe I do. That would be make it an int. It's better to have it and not use it than to not have it and need it. I am going to do the date. I think we can add just in the code. Don't necessarily need it here. I do want the review title. I do want the rating, and rating will be int. It's basically you rate it 1 to 5. And we do want the text of the review. Okay, does that make sense? And again, where I'm getting this, I'm just looking at the database table. The one thing it has the book key, but I put the book title, and it's fairly easy in that link syntax to convert the title to the key. It's fairly easy to do. So you can put the text in there if you want for the title, and it'll figure out what the key is. long as the titles are unique, which is a different question. Okay, you guys need a minute with this, or you got it? Again, the concept, well, I don't care about the details of this because details could change in a year or so. It's the concept, basically. We're creating classes to store things. You did that before. Even when you did this by hand, you would end up writing a bunch of these little classes to store the data before you transferred it over to the database. Up at the very top, we'll add one more operation contract. Not with curly braces. Square braces. And I'm just going to call it add review. Review light. So that's all we're going to add, those three things. So we're going to add author, which just has the author name. We're going to add the book. We're going to add the review. And I made data contracts for those two things. As I said, you could maybe have gotten away without the data contracts, but I know that that works. The other works sometimes. Yeah.
There's like, you have a little like word or whatnot in between operation contract.
It just says 0 references.
What is it?
0 references. It's not something I wrote.
It's part of Visual Studio.
Well, yeah, I know that, but what is it?
Oh, it means that nothing's referring to this. Yeah. Now, if we go up, notice that operation contract, this one has one reference, so these have a reference in the sense that there is a method in the other class that refers back to them, to the interface.
How do you turn that on and off? Does that have it?
I don't know how to turn that on and off. I think it may be a version, but what version are you using? This is 2013. I wonder if it left it out of 2015. Oh, look, I have 2015 at home. You have it, and you have 2015?
I remember seeing it in 2015. I'm just setting up.
Yeah, it's not a, it doesn't matter a whole lot. It doesn't affect things. I'm not sure. There may be a way to turn those off and on. What? Oh, yeah, I was going to go to the next part, but. And again, it's just the fields of the table. Oh. I think it's that your reviewer login already exists.
Yes.
So you need to name it something different. So up at the top, again, the methods are reviewer login, reviewer registration, add author, add book, add review. Okay, so there's a couple of things that we have to do too. We have to update our service, right, to add the new methods because they have to match. Also, we never brought in a lot of these tables, right? So we need to update our ADO entities also. It's not hard. So first I'll update the service. So I'm just going to click on that. And the easiest way is just like we did before. If you click on the service, now in 2015 this does have a little bit different look. It actually shows it like as an error. Here it just gives you that little stupid smart tag. And you can do that, and then you can implement the service. And what that does is down below, it adds our methods, right? So it makes it in compliance. The other thing I think I've mentioned before, these interfaces, again, this is what it passes to the client. This is how the client knows what methods it can call. But interfaces are used everywhere in programming. I mean, it is a part of object-oriented programming. I mean, there are thousands of built-in interfaces, and you can build your own at any time. And especially when you're building a complex project with other people working on it, interfaces can be really useful to define how a thing needs to look. When you send your code to China, you tell them, you give them some interfaces they have to program to, right? So that when it comes back, you know what you are getting, at least you know what the names of the methods and the signatures are. So interfaces are a really crucial part of programming. I just wanted to mention that because it's not just in these services, they're all over the place. All right, so we updated this. Anybody have problems doing that? You can type these in. There's nothing to keep you from typing them in, but they have to be typed in exactly. They have to match exactly. Okay.
It really, why do it by hand when you have something?
Yes, I know. I hate doing these things by hand because you've seen me. I'm not a good typist. Even though I've been typing for years and years and years, I'm not a good typist. I'm going to take that back. If you look in the solution explorer, it's the one that says diagram, I think. Is that right? No. It's the one that says EDMX. Okay. The one that says diagram is actually just an XML file that describes the diagram. That's another thing that we could spend a whole quarter on, is everything you do, in particularly in Visual Studio, has XML underneath it. And that's increasingly true in a lot of the web world. We have only got review and check-in, so how do we add the others? We have, if you right-click into the white, and just don't right-click on one of these, you'll get their properties. Just right-click in the white. Update model from database. So we're going to go do that. We're going to update the model from database, and we're going to add some tables. We want author. We want author book. We want book. We actually want book category, so I might have to do something. We actually want everything that's left. We might have to add something about category, or we can use like another word for it would probably be genre. But I didn't use just genre because it's fiction, nonfiction, but also science fiction, you know, that kind of thing. So if we want to add that, we probably need to make a list, you know, just get it. And we could do that pretty easily. So that's all we need, is just the rest of the tables. I'm going to do finish, and it will add the rest of the tables. Doesn't add them in a neat way, but you can move them around if you want and get them to where they are all on screen. Not that it matters, but you can do that. Still not quite there. There we go. So once you've done this, it's really important to save. And you'll get, if you haven't said that you never want to see it again, you'll get these security warnings, which, as I said, I never cancel because they are my best sign that it worked. If you don't get any security warnings, then it probably didn't work, unless you turned them off. All right, so I have all the tables there. So we've updated to add all the rest of the tables. All right. So let's go back to the service. I think I'm going to ignore categories. Yeah, we'll see. That's the interface I want to go to here. So add author is going to be fairly easy, right? Did we have a gig categories? Was there a gig categories method in our first select things? I don't remember.
No.
No. So that might be the place to add it, actually, but we'll ignore it. All right. So let's do. What I'm going to do here is author A equals new author. Notice how that's teal. Author is coming from the ADO entities, right? So it's created a table with the same name as our thing. I don't have a stored procedure to write this to the database, but that's fine. We're going to show. So I'm going to say a dot author name equals author name, although you could say, if you want, equals okay. So we're saying that the author name in our class, brand new class author, instance A, is equal to the author name that we're passing in. Does that make sense? From the client, we're going to pass in an author name. Class in this table. That's the only in this table. So I'm going to do C, actually, what did I call it? What is my database connection, ADO connection called? Is DB. So I'm going to do db.authors.add A. I'm going to add A. And then I'm going to do db.authors dot save changes. Oh, it's just db.save changes. So this is basically, oh, and then I have to do, if I want to do this, I have an int here. So I'm going to say int result equals 1. Okay, so I'm going to say try. You guys know try catches? There's another thing we should go through all of these and set up some error trapping. I'm actually not going to throw X. I'm not sure if I need that. I could probably just do that's just to get the int at the end. But now it wants Okay. It wants something in this. It needs to catch something. Okay. And then X is never used. I could. We could throw the X. Anybody know what that means? Anybody know what any of that means? So an exception is an error, right? So it's an error that occurs in runtime. So try catch is a way of handling exceptions that happen. Where is an exception going to happen? It's going to happen when you try to save your table. If there's something wrong with your table, you know, with the values in it, it will fail at that point. It'll create a database error. That error can be caught here, and we'll just change the result of the. This throws the exception forward to the client, and they can handle it however they want. They can say, sorry, that wasn't saved, and you know they could show what the exception is and whatever else it is. Try catches are really useful, particularly whenever you're contacting, because there could be lots of reasons this would fail. One of it, there could be a duplicate author name, right? I'm not sure if I made author names unique, but if I had, which I should, it would throw an error if you had a duplicate author name. It can also throw an error if the database is, the server is down, right? If the server is unavailable. So that's another reason why it could throw an error. There could be other, you could throw an error if you don't have permission to write to the database. So there's lots of things, but any error is going to probably happen here in these two things. So but let's try this. So we've created our add author. So let's go to, I'm going to run it. And I'm going to add the author. Anybody have a good author name? It's not in there. There aren't very many in there. Let me think. Who was I reading recently?
Bradbury.
Yeah, is Bradbury in there? He was my favorite when I was about 15. It threw an error. But it threw an error before my try catch. What does it not like about the name? What did I not? Usually this reference means that something wasn't made new, but I don't see.
What's A dot author name?
That's this, author A,
What's the value of A author name?
Ray Bradbury. Now it's null here. Why is it null there? Oh, because I'm broken here.
Probably trying to call method on null object, so that's what we're getting at.
But yeah, but what's a null object?
A dot author name.
No, that's not. Author is made new. Author name belongs to A.
A dot author name is set.
Yeah, it is. Author is a built-in. Yeah.
Something back in the login service. Yeah, part of the data contract.
This shouldn't relate to the. This is actually in. let me look at Solution Explorer. Let's look at our model CS. Not that one. Not that one. See, there's author name. Public string author name gets set. Yeah,
Is the author name starting with the lowercase name? Oh, yeah, you're.
that's the variable that's coming in. I don't understand what's not set.
It just created this author. Why would that value even be set at this point?
Well, we're setting it right here. Let's go back to the service. We're setting it right here, equals new author, and then equals here, author name.
Is it because
Int versus string.
No, I mean author name is string.
run it again?
Yeah. Could be the space in Ray Bradbury. Shouldn't be though. All right, so what is not set though?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Something you might not know about Visual Studio is there's something called the immediate window, which allows you to execute methods and get field values right here on the fly. I don't know if you can see that.
Why does it say author name is null? That's the weird thing. And if you mouse over it,
You just created author name, but you haven't set any fields in it yet.
well, yeah, but no, author is pre-created. This is setting a field in it.
The,
Author is being created, but it is the instance of author. Author as a class exists in the ADL.
but not this particular instance.
Right, but I'm assigning a author name equals author name.
You're testing for equality here. You're not setting anything.
You know, I think you're right. I think you're right. That's for equality. This is for assignment. Coffee problem.
And then it probably just timed out there.
Right, I think we just need to restart it. Yeah, you're right, because I see what you were saying from the beginning. So this time it should work. Ray Bradbury. Invoke, okay, and it returns a 1. So if I go to the Server Explorer and I look at authors, and I can do show table data, and Ray Bradbury is at the bottom. You were right. I was thinking that just comparing strings, but we're not comparing. We're assigning. Okay.
Steve, can you just like recap what you?
Yeah, so what I did is a mistake. That's what you need recapped.
How you fixed it?
I did this as an equal sign.
Okay.
Because I'm not comparing it to author. I am saying it is, I'm assigning the author name to author. And I didn't see that because I really need coffee.
I was wondering why you're doing an equality test, but they're not doing anything.
Yeah, no, the way you were explaining it though, I wasn't seeing it, and I'm not sure why, because you were right. I just made brain fart is what I call that. I have them, lots of them.
We all do.
Name basically assigns the author name to the author name in the class. Then this adds it to the collection of authors. Remember how it pluralizes things? That's what they are. It's basically this author is equivalent. It's a class, but it's equivalent to one row in the database. This is equivalent to the table. This is equivalent to a row. So we're writing a new row to the database. We're adding that row, and then we're saving changes. This save changes is real generic. If you're doing an update of an existing row, you still just save changes. You know, it does a lot of smart stuff underneath, like magic, which is a problem in some ways, because you don't know how it's doing it. But. All right. So we added an author. Let's add a book, and then we'll do the review. All right. So same basic thing. We're going to do a book, and we're going to make it equal a new book. So this is the built-in, the class that came from the database. We're going to do book. So let's do book title equals BL dot title. Okay, so BL is the book like that's coming in, but we're going to pass it. B dot probably should do the, well, let's do ISBN equals BL dot ISBN. B dot book date equals date time now. B dot, okay, so we've got categories. Let's not do categories, I guess. I think it can go without. B dot, I'm just thinking, what else do we have in B? Book light. We have the author, right? That's the one that's going to be equals, and this part I might need to look up, because this is what uses the lambda, because authors is plural. So I think it's, I'm going to go real quickly to you guys don't have to do this, but I'm going to go to GitHub. And I'm going to go to repositories, and I'm going to go to book review registration service, registration login service. Okay. Okay, this is how I did it. I'm going to copy it, and then I'll show you. So is that how it? So we're going to pass in authors. What else am I missing there? So we got new book. I'm going to look at the data thing, because I may have made authors as So I did a little bit different here. I'm going to go back to the interface, and where it says book, reviewer book light. So we did author, but I actually did it as public list author. And then I'm not sure if I want to call it author, maybe author. So I'm making it a list of authors, and I'm going to call it author names. So this is with the data member here, public list author, author names, given set. The reason why it's a list, anybody know why I would make it a list? Which I should have thought about when I was doing it the first time. Because you might have multiple authors, right? So it's basically allowing for there to be a collection of authors. And I don't know if we want to call it author names. Do we want to call it author names? If I do that, then I think what I need to do, now what is it not like about this? Cannot convert the type author to string. Oh, you know, let's rebuild this.
What was the name of the repository?
The repository?
Yeah. They just
So this is registration login service, and it has all the code that we would be doing here. And I know it works, although you might have to, if you download these, you usually have to change the server to SQL Express in the config file. So when I do that, I'm just looking at my book, new book. I just have title, ISBN, and authors. I don't know if I should have named it authors. Now B is my book. I'm pretty sure if I do B dot, I will still find authors, because that's actually just the relation to authors. For each, I'm going to just change this to var A in author. I'm playing with this to try to get rid of the red, and if it works, I'll explain. Book equals new book. Book authors add on. And I think this needs to be B. There. I think I've got it. So let me see if I can talk my way through it. What? How did I? Yeah, that's red because I'm not returning an integer. Yeah. So I'm declaring a new thing called, new item called book. And it's got this is the built-in class that we get from ADO. So the book title is equal to whatever this says the title is from BL. The book ISBN is equal to the ISBN from our book light. The book entry date is going to be equal to just whatever the current date is. So it's whatever date we're entering it, that it's just going to stamp that time. Now, authors is a collection, right? Because it can be multiple authors. It might only be one author, but it's going to be a collection. So we're saying for each thing in that list of authors, right? So if we've added multiple authors, for each thing in that list of authors, we're going to create an author, and we're going to, for the database authors, first or default, and I'm not sure if I can explain that entirely, X, which is a variable, this is our lambda, such that X, the X author name to string, and I had to turn it to string because in the thing it's a var. It's not a type yet. And then it wouldn't allow me to do equal with the two string here, so I had to do equals A, which is our variable up here. Right? So basically for each author in authors, we're looking for the name that equals A, and then we're adding it to that table. What author is a single row, authors is the table, right? So we're adding a new row to authors that belongs to this book, right? So we've got, basically, this is the book. We're assuming that the authors exist. And we're basically going through the list of authors associated with this book and assigning them to this table. Does that make sense? Sort of? For what it's worth, this took me a long time to figure out. And I'm not sure I'm explaining it real clearly right now. So. But it basically comes about because author is a multi-value. It's also the result of a linking table, right? So it's a many-to-many relations as a result in the database by a linking table. And this is how the C# handles that kind of relation. If we were to do the categories, it would be the same kind of thing because it's a multi-value many-to-many relationship. It would be set up the same way. Now, if it's any encouragement for you, I figured it out by Googling it. It took a lot of Googling, but I did figure it out. So the very last thing, so we've got the add book, we've got the authors, we're going to ignore the categories. I'm pretty sure that is ignorable. And then I'm going to, at the end of this, I'm just going to do, so DB, our database context, books, and then we add, so we're going to add this book to books, and then we're going to save changes. And for right now, I'm not going to put the try catch in here. I'm just going to return one. We'll fix that later. It has to return an enter. It won't be happy.
Would be about the same as what it was.
What?
Try and catch.
Yeah, so the try and catch It might be good to put a try catch around the whole thing, but you could for sure around this. One of the things too I want to say about try catches, sometimes it's better not to add them until you've debugged it, because they will encapsulate the error. It'll be a little harder to tell where the error happened sometimes. Sometimes it's nice to have it crash right on the spot so you can fix it. And then once you're pretty sure that it's in good shape and not going to crash most of the time, then put the try catches in there to catch the truly the exception, the thing that you weren't predicting that went wrong. So I'm going to run this. Let's see if we can add a book. So I'm going to add a book. So authors' names, I don't know if I can add anything to that. How do I do this? This is hard to test in this. So yeah, it is letting me add something. I'm going to add Ray Bradbury. I have no idea what the is. Not a valid for that type. All right, this is just a hard code it, just for testing. I'm going to so we're adding Ray Bradbury to the list. Now what does it like about that?
I imagined, well, his author names maybe not, but maybe it's trying to look for an author object rather than a.
It is, I think it is. So I probably should have made it a string. So I probably have to do something like, this is not something you would have to do from the client, but it's just for this testing. So I'm going to do author. The thing is, Ray Bradbury already exists. Anybody have a different author name? Because I think Ray Bradbury exists. Again, we would be passing these in probably from a drop-down list in the client.
White.
E.B. White, okay. All right. Oh, so let's call this AU because it's of a scope where it interferes with the A down here. All right, so let's try this again. This is just to, this is something just to test. It's not part of the code that you want there. So I'm going to add a book. We have the authors. ISBN, I'm just going to say 98, I don't know. Title, so there's the Once and Future King. What else did E.B. write? Wait.
All Charles went, the door, very little.
It's 2 T's.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
I'm going to, whoops. I'm going,
The door.
What?
The door.
The door. Let's do the door. The reason I was hesitating about the apostrophe. It may or may not cause an issue. So let's do an invoke. Let's do OK. So it says 1. Of course, I didn't have any error dropping, but it would have crashed if it wasn't working. So let's see if it worked. And I may call this a day. We have one more piece of this, but so let's look under book. That's not what I wanted to do. I want to see show table data. And notice it did. It added the door. And it gave that. And it should have added E.B. White. Let's see if it did. So let's do author data. I wonder if I can refresh that.
Yeah, just.
No, but I don't know. Let's kill it and do it again. I don't know if it added E.B. White, but it should have. So author, show table data. Nope, it didn't add E.B. White. That's interesting. How did it allow that to happen? Let's add an existing author. That's not what I want to do. So let's add Ray Bradbury. So I'm going to add book. Title, I guess The Martian Chronicles. Okay, so it wrote. Let's see if it, the trick is, did it match it? So we look in the Server Explorer, so I look at book. Actually, we have book up. I'm curious if, yeah, so the Martian Chronicles are there. The real key is, so let's see when the author name, let's look at the authors. I just need the key for, I keep doing properties. So Ray Bradbury is 14. So let's look at author book and see if it added it there. Didn't. It's not really adding because he was 14, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I may have to look at this. Why did it not add it? It's adding the book. It's just not adding the related information. I don't want the properties. What am I doing that's, I've added the authors. B authors add author. It should add that. So that should be numbers. So I'm just looking to, I'm trying to debug why this isn't working. All right, right, so we're here. So there's book. I want to see what book is. The Illustrated Man, book key, the authors. It's not showing me the author as having any value. Authors count equals 0. Why is that? The author is null. Huh. Count is 0. Why is it 0? Why is there no author there? Maybe it's never added. All right, I'm going to try one more thing, and then I think we'll call it for today, and I'll try to do it again next time, but I think so. I did the Illustrated Man, I did the Martian Chronicles. Something wicked this way comes. That's the title. That should go down. And okay, so that wrote. Let's see if it actually did anything though. So author is Ray Bradbury. Book should be there. And let's go to, actually I do want to see author. It doesn't seem to have added it still. So let me see what's going on. Because I know that the one on the blog is working, not the blog, but the one in the GitHub is working. So I'm not sure what I'm doing differently.
You go back to your service.
Sure.
So if he has an error for right after the if statement for authors, what's going on there?
So this is the authors that belongs to the book.
Is authors in the database book table?
Yeah, so the way it is, if we look at, so the book is B, right? We're creating a new book. And one of the things you can do is B dot authors. So authors is related to,
So yeah, what's the difference? What if you're
what does it say? What does the error say?
an artist? And my artist is not showing up under show. So I just don't know.
So it doesn't show up under shows, it's show details.
Right, okay.
So it's actually, I don't know that you can get there, show details, authors.
You have to do.
You might have to start with show details or add a from for show details. Does that make sense? Does anybody, what? Yeah, so I'm going to look at this And I will try to explain what's going awry next time. We could just copy the code from the blog.
I'd rather remember everything.
Well, this should make sense. So we're doing a loop for the authors, and we're saying that we want the list from the list. We're going to add the author to authors. We're adding it to the author, but it's saying that it's coming up 0. It's coming up null. Now, so I think it's here. Yeah. I think I just want to change the go back to the interface. Yeah. Instead of author, maybe I just want to make this a list of strings. Author, to the author's first default. Yeah.
Adding extra procedures to DB100.
Diagram.
Yeah. The light code can add new.
Well, so actually, so what I'm looking
It's
for
not
my.
saying my stuff or something.
So in the actual diagram, the EDMX, you right click, update model from database, and you should be able to like see the stored procedures, and then check the boxes, and then finish, and then save it all, and then hopefully they'll be there. All right, one last try here. If it works, I'll explain it, but I think mostly I'm going to. Because I think I may have done something where I confused myself with names as well. So I want to look at the, no, not the book author book. Still didn't do it, still didn't write it. Why isn't it writing it to that? I'll figure it out, I'll let you know.
What's the name of the repository?
Which I think I closed, but let's just go to. So it's not the class examples, it's book review. So it's registration login service. And then the app code there. Let me just look at the service. For each string, A and B authors. I'm sure that works. So what is the difference? Let me look at the interface. New book. So I did it just as a list of strings, which I did change that. And I did a set and get. Title list. We'll go over it. As I said, we'll go over it on Wednesday. We'll make it work. Don't you love to watch? And you have a video of me being and being. I don't see what I did differently. Does anybody see it off the top of your head? So in the book, I did call it authors, which was kind of dumb. So when I go to the app code, login service, author equals DB authors first or default, author name equals A. Book see, I don't know what I'm adding to here because I named it authors. in my interface. So I don't know if I'm adding it to, no, book, it has to be book. New book B. So it's adding it to the authors thing. So it is the authors. I don't know. I'll have to look. We'll call it good for today. You can get started or up other things, and we'll get this worked out. I may just download this and look at it. That's not, yeah, although it's not working. This part.
This makes it on here. I have trade.
It doesn't matter what you name them. I'm gonna kill the